I'm going to be moving to Washington State in just a few days, 2 days maybe I think away from today, and yeah, I'm just really excited, really nervous, but at the same time really excited. Me and Demon Mama are going to be road tripping across the country from Palm Springs, California, where I am now, all the way up to Seattle. I'm just really excited. It's going to be awesome. It's a part of the country I've never seen before this entire trek, and we're going to be vlogging it along the way. It's going to be really, really fun, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But with all that said, since I only have a couple days left here on this porch, I want to make a few more videos here, since it's a really unique thing that I've set up here with all these animals, and I plan to set up something very similar in Seattle, and it's just cool while we got it. I also got the fire pit here. Anyway, that lengthy intro out of the way, let's get into the actual topic of this video. I want to talk with you guys today about the culture of the internet. Now, I don't know how long most of you guys have been following me, or how long most of you have been following politics, but if it's been for some time, then chances are you have had the experience of watching the internet change in terms of what side politically does it seem to have a bias in favor or against. Think back to Gamergate. From 2014 to 2017, it really seemed like the right had a stranglehold on internet culture. Everywhere you looked, it seemed like if there was a way to make something political, the right managed to benefit from it, right? If a game was succeeding, they found a way to make it, oh yeah, this game is succeeding because it is in support of our ideals. I remember back during the Gamergate era, a lot of Gamergate types were talking about how The Witcher 3 succeeding was proof that like straight white male protagonists are what gamers want, and they don't care about virtue signaling identity politics and all those buzzwords that conservatives love to use to describe any minority group they don't like. For a while, that, as silly as it may sound, that was the predominantly like major political position for gamers to have. It was very rare to run into somebody in a comment section in a gaming video who didn't have some cringe opinions about the state of the gaming, market, and how apparently it's being destroyed by progressive, left-wing SJW infiltration. Now, as time went by, and particularly as we got into 2018, it seemed like things started to happen that just sort of changed internet culture. Particularly going into 2019, which is when I think I'm the most tapped into these things. I remember that the Christchurch shooting happened. It was in New Zealand, and a neo-Nazi, inspired by the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, wrote a big manifesto and proceeded to murder over 50 people in a mosque in Christchurch, New Zealand. He wrote a whole manifesto about what motivated him. It was literal white supremacist. He named his manifesto the Great Replacement, the conspiracy theory that's popularized by online alt-right figures. And from that point on, it seemed like the mainstream media and just a lot more people started to care about the far right. I think Charlottesville helped too. Just a bunch of Nazis carrying tiki torches and chanting anti-Semitic shit. I think a lot happened in a short period of time that made the internet and just broader culture more inclined to see the right as crazy. And I think as we went into the 2020 election and onward, with the anti-masking, the anti-vax stuff, the blatant anti-science, the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert getting really far in the Republican Party, the whole Trump side of things just getting crazier and crazier, I think we're watching, or we saw, I should say, as the internet and just culture in general, our society got a little bit more, it felt like the scales were leaned a little more on the side of the left, if that makes sense. It's hard to quantify, it's hard to put into words, but if you were there, you felt it and you understand it. I think particularly in the last year or so, we've seen, as things have gotten a lot worse for a lot of minority groups in this country. And alongside that, we've seen as internet culture has backed up the very harmful legislation that has targeted these groups. And For a while, back when the left was really gaining some steam online, back in the 2019 days, it felt like so many people were just, I mean, people on the left were just kind of defaulting to this weird position that internet culture war stuff didn't matter. And while it doesn't matter in the sense that people shouldn't be fixated on it in the way that conservatives are, it does matter in the sense that it decides elections. It really, really decides elections, especially now more than ever. I remember back in 2020 when I was watching quartering videos and Ben Shapiro videos and just random videos from neo-Nazi YouTubers and crazy conservative grifter types that were just all about how the trans agenda was taking over schools and LGBT blue-haired teachers were grooming your kids into becoming gay or whatever. And I was always so enamored by the fact that the right was getting more mask off, Like during this time, the right was just getting pummeled online, culturally speaking, and going more and more mask off. I really thought that things were not going to go well for the right anytime in the future, judging by the way that they were just kind of revealing all of their cards, just laying them out on the table. But then Matt Walsh, among other figures, just started to go so hard to the right that it just stopped mattering. People like Andrew Tate, who openly call themselves misogynists, who admit to sex trafficking and seeing women as inferior. Kanye West saying that he's a full-on Nazi and he loves Hitler, and people just excuse all this shit. Like, it's just, maybe he's joking, whatever. Like, I remember back in 2019, we were having whole debates as to whether or not someone was a Nazi, with the whole presupposition being, if you could prove this person was a Nazi, then they're a bad person and they're done for, as far as their online reputation goes. Now, that's not so much the case. It really feels like we were having debates back in 2019 as to whether or not somebody was a Nazi, with the presupposition that if you could prove in this debate with reasonable amounts of evidence that this person was actually a Nazi, that you got him. We got him. We did it. We got him. But now you've got Kanye West just outright saying he loves Hitler and he loves the Nazis. You've got recently this video, this guy's videos have been going viral, where it's just this guy who stands in Florida, who stands out front of synagogues, and just with a megaphone and just screams random anti-Semitic shit at like the rabbis and the random people coming in and out of the parking lot. And he like runs out in front of their cars and tries to like bait them into hitting him, like trying to do that sort of slip and Jimmy kind of like move where you feint a car accident, trying to get some random Jewish person charged for hitting him, right? And the police haven't done anything about this guy, as far as I know, up to the point of this video. And we're seeing videos go up on Twitter now, basically unmoderated Twitter, of these insane far-right lunatics doing the most crazy shit and getting tens of thousands of likes. They're getting massive amounts of positive reinforcement for some of the most heinous behavior imaginable. And lately, I've been getting so many messages from fans asking me, Zan, why, asking me, Zan, why are things getting so much worse than they were just a few years ago? It felt like things were on such a good track back in 2020. Why is everything so bad? It feels like on every level, legislatively, culturally, everywhere, things are getting worse for particularly LGBT people, but a lot of different minority groups. And particularly hostile against the left, a lot of these spaces have gotten in the last year or so. And people ask me, like, things felt like they were getting so much better just a couple years ago. What happened? Why is this happening? Why is this cultural shift happening? And I think back to, like I said, in 2019, when topics like the gender hysteria panic thing were just the topics of grifters' YouTube videos and Daily Wire hosts. Now it's literally driving elections and bills are being passed, and it's literally affecting real-world politics on the legislative level. It's very clear the culture war affects the real world, and it's very clear that it matters and that we actually need to care about it. And a lot of people clearly do care about it based on the messages I've been getting. And I want to answer that question. I want to give you guys my opinion on why I think internet culture has been shifting more towards, conservative side of things. First of all, I think this has a lot to do with age. I think that the internet, as it stands right now and for the last few years, has been sort of raising entire generations of kids. I don't think this is like really a controversial statement. And the younger the kids are, the more likely they were to be significantly raised by the internet. A lot of parents just opt to use a computer, an iPad, or a phone as their kid's babysitter. And I definitely think there's a lot of valuable, enriching content to get from that. At the same time, there's a lot of negative things that can occur from just nonstop internet usage as well. And one of them is internet radicalization. You see a whole lot of young kids every few years come into the internet, and they're coming to YouTube and Reddit and maybe even 4chan and these other popular platforms that teenagers will go on, and they're getting into politics. And in my experience, both in my own experience and my friends, when you are a teenager, you want to be unique. You want to feel separate. You want to feel like you have your own identity. And in many cases, in the case of a lot of millennials, most millennials are progressive. Most millennials, which are having kids that are Zoomers for the most part, are progressive. And they're a classic kind of Hillary Clinton liberal type of progressive for the most part. And so you've got this newer generation of, Gen Z kids coming up in a world where it really feels like a lot of the injustice of the past was long ago and has no bearing on the present, while also being surrounded by people expressing progressive political viewpoints. And so if you're a teenager and one of your top priorities is to rebel and to gain some level of individuality and to feel unique, then finding contrary political positions that make you feel special is going to be one of those go-to things. And the right has always been the best at making young people online who've just figured out their politics through their propaganda feel special. Like they've figured it out. Like they've got it all figured out and everybody else is a dumbass, right? I felt like that when I was a young reactionary shitter. And I think that's a big part of it. Look at most Andrew Tate fans. Most of them aren't even old enough to buy cryptocurrency because you have to be 18 years old in order to do it. Most of them are legally not old enough to engage in stock trading or trading crypto, and yet they front the whole NFT avatar, I'm a crypto stock bro, I'm gonna have stacks when I turn 18 and I can actually trade stocks, they front that whole personality. But you look at them on Twitter and they all have a 1 in front of their name. In front of their age. Their age starts with a 1 every single time. Very few of these guys, and they're all guys, are over 20 years old. I think it's a lot of that, a lot of young people being preyed on. And there's a lot of different people doing the predating. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's this new community of pretty hot trad women. They dress in the trad getup, and they're really hot, and they make TikToks where they're doing trad wife things, and it's this is what I want to do for my future husband, hashtag free Andrew Tate. And it's very clear bait just to get tens of thousands of likes from Andrew Tate fans who are horny and want to see pretty women validate their positions. Because I'm going to be honest, a lot of these young guys, if they see pretty women validating these politics, that's what they want to see. That'll do it for a lot of them. And the Andrew Tate Andrew Tate supporter e-girl community is one of them. I don't know if you guys have seen it on Twitter, but I have as well. I think another aspect of this is who's attacking what. I don't know if you guys remember this, but during Gamergate, a signature aspect of Gamergate was that it was the left levying cultural critique on gaming media, criticizing it for certain problematic aspects that it has. And the main draw of anti-SJW content, as it was called back then, was that it was defending the media that you enjoy from these harpies who are attacking what you like and want to change it irreparably from something else for political agenda reasons, right? And these people very effectively were arguing in a defense for the media that was so popular. the success of the media they were defending carried them with it, right? Because they kind of attached themselves to it in the narrative, in the in the cultural sphere, as far as people could tell, right? Like if The Witcher 3 was doing well, then the anti-SJW YouTubers who were defending The Witcher 3 from some SJW game reviewer, then they're winning, right? And that was basically how they validated themselves, and it worked. It worked. And time went by, and games, one of the go-to responses that these right-wing grifter YouTubers would say in response to liberal game journalists was, if you don't like how games are now, make your own games. Make your own games with, a black or trans or gay character. And it was like, okay. And then they made their own games. We got games like Life is Strange. We got games like Spider-Man Miles Morales. We got games like, I remember when it first came out, Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Assassin's Creed, it wasn't Unity, it was Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Got a lot of shit because they had a female characters that you could play as. And a bunch of other games that I'm sure you can just look up the Quarterings channel, look up the Quartering and then game, and then you'll see pretty much everything that the conservatives have had an excuse to complain about in games as of late. Basically, a ton of games came out with diverse casts and just a lot of progressive values, and these conservatives didn't have as much ammo to go after in terms of like BuzzFeed articles attacking games for being problematic anymore. So what did they have to do? They had to start attacking progressive games. So, and any progressive media really, it extended beyond games. So you had Marvel movies or Disney movies coming out that had like a woman as the lead, and these conservatives would basically stake themselves on the idea of these, like they would bet on these things failing. They'd say, go woke, go broke, these things are gonna fail, and then they wouldn't, and they looked stupid. And that just kept happening over and over again. Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, just all these, you guys remember it, I'm sure. All these cultural events, these games would come out that were supposed to be super bad because they're woke, just didn't fail. They didn't perform poorly, certainly not because they're woke. And for a while there, especially from 2019 to, I'd say, late 2021, it felt like it was the right on the satanic panic cultural attack on things that were popular, and things that were popular were opposed to the right. And that just kind of fucked the right over. And the left was at a very blatant upper hand. I mean, it was the peak of cancel culture, and say what you want, but cancel culture was real. And the fact that cancel culture got as big as it did shows us the left has the ability to exert strong amounts of cultural power online, and social power online, sorry. It was the peak of cancel culture, it was the peak of RedTube blowing up, it was the rise of some of the most prominent left-wing figures out there now. It happened back then. Just overall, it really felt like that time was a big improvement. Moving on though, what's happening now? Why have things changed? Well, if you pay attention, things have gotten a lot more like Gamergate lately, haven't they? No longer is it really the right on the offense attacking popular things anymore. The right are attacking unpopular things. They're picking the right targets. They're misrepresenting things and creating masterful propaganda. Right now, they're attacking all of the left's weakest spots the most critically. I think the person who's doing this best right now is Matt Walsh. You see, the topic of trans women in sports, and the topic of trans women in bathrooms, and in spaces where women who may have been sexually assaulted or raped, has been like one of those touchy subjects, right? Because a lot of women out there have been sexually assaulted or raped by a man. And because of that, don't really feel comfortable around men anymore. And those same women may not be comfortable around trans women as well if they don't see said trans woman as a woman. And they may be transphobic, but they're also a recovering rape victim who's traumatized. A lot of hummingbirds flying around at the moment. And I don't know if the transphobia really negates the validity of traumatized rape victim. And it's one of those issues that has always been touchy on the left, and that's why we've always left it up to very good faith discussion, very reasonable middle ground discussion, but the right isn't good faith. The right isn't down to have good faith discussion. They recognize this as a weak point in the left's ideology, a chink in the armor, and they attack it viciously. Like, why do you think it's okay for men to go into women's restrooms? Don't you want to protect women? Don't you want to protect kids, right? And then, of course, there's the hypocrisy with women's sports. I think most of you guys can probably think of one experience where a conservative guy has said, "Heh, women's sports, it's only good for looking at their asses." And now all of a sudden they're paragons of caring about the fairness and the equality and the proper the proper winner being determined in women's sports all of a sudden, only because their virtue signaling about it can hurt trans people. They recognize the sports issue as being a weak spot on the left, and they're attacking all of these weak points very precisely. And it's definitely hurt the left pretty bad culturally. And a lot of it's just the fact that there hasn't been loud enough voices speaking against these attacks as well, because there are good responses to these propaganda points that the right is making. The left just doesn't have the loud enough voices, or enough loud voices, arguing against them. And I have a final point. I think the final point is that, as I said before, it is now the left on the attack against popular things. I think Hogwarts Legacy is really just the most obvious and most recent example of this. Literally, the game is breaking ground. Like, everyone's talking about it, everyone's playing it. It's been weeks after it's come out at this point, and people are still talking about it, not even in the context of the boycott, but just talking about the game, like they're enjoying the game, apparently. It's apparently pretty good. And not only that, but it was a Harry Potter game. This boycott was never going to go anywhere, and as you can see, it left everybody who isn't on the left, and even many people on the left, with a bad taste in their mouths about the left. I really think the left mishandled the Hogwarts Legacy situation overall. And I think if you look online right now at a lot of the grifter right-wing channels, much like they did back in Gamergate, they have anchored themselves to Hogwarts Legacy, a popular game, and its success is bringing them upward. Every single time you see some article about Hogwarts Legacy succeeding and getting a record amount of sales, some right-wing YouTuber makes a video where they talk about, see, this is proof that the vast majority of people do not agree with this trans agenda nonsense, right? When in reality, it's just a Harry Potter game. Of course it was going to sell well. Harry Potter is one of the most popular franchises in existence. The left is not picking and choosing its battles well enough right now. We are fighting and trying to push against popular things. God, the amount of YouTubers who are saying, left-wing YouTubers, who are saying, don't play Hogwarts Legacy, this big popular game everyone's playing and talking about right now. Here are some low-poly indie games made by trans creators you can play instead. And I appreciate I appreciate the sentiment of that, but that is literally the same vibe as, like, you're in the car and you ask your mom if you can stop and get some, like, burgers and fries from McDonald's, and she says there's burgers and fries at home, and they're like 3-day-old, like, reheated in the microwave. Like, it's just, I'm not trying to disparage those games, but it's like, you know the meme. Like, everybody knows that feeling of like, oh, come on. When you want something and you're told, no, do something else because you're bad if you do the thing. You know, it's just, it's such a bad look. It feels so preachy, judgmental, and like, you're setting standards and boundaries for being a part of the left that don't make anybody want to be a part of the left. Who would want to be a part of the left if you're not allowed to take part in one of the biggest gaming phenomenons of the year to be a part of the left, right? If you're going to be shamed and ostracized and whatnot. You know, I think that's definitely a weak point as far as the left has gone in the last year or so. And as far as what do we do about it, I think we need to look to the past with situations like this. What happened before? I love the hummingbirds. What happened before? What happened back during Gamergate that changed everything? Well, the left got better at arguing. Figures who knew how to argue against this propaganda rose to the top. They got popular, they gained a following, they gained some level of notoriety. People like Hassan, people like H-Bomber Guy and Philosophy Tube and ContraPoints. All these figures came along out of necessity. I think a leaf just went up. The left needed figures like them. The left needed figures like, I would say, even me to an extent, even though I don't know how big my splash has been in the internet cultural pool. The left needed figures like us to come along and kind of veer the generally misguided methods that online leftist figures tend to engage in, more towards productivity. And unfortunately, right now, the way you control internet culture, the way you productively control internet culture, is through controlling its platforms with media and entertainment. It's why I make the videos that I do. It's why I try to upload as much as I can and get as many views as I can. Granted, I succeed from it and I get to make money, and I definitely gain a nice warm fuzzy feeling in my heart when you guys hit the like button and you comment down below and you hit the subscribe button. I also want these ideas to reach far and wide. I want people to agree with my beliefs. I want people to join the left. I want people to be like, oh, I get it, after they see my video and realize like so much of these popular ideas are being fed by right-wing propaganda. Very flimsy right-wing propaganda, by the way. But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to talk about. The shift of internet culture, why it's happened, the ways in which it's happening, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I think it was really cozy sitting next to the fire and talking about this. I've got a couple more videos I want to record tonight, so thank you so much for watching. You know what to do if you enjoyed, and have a good one.